2026 engine crisis is here, and over 1 million vehicles have already been reported with failures. So let me walk you through 8 brands and 8 disasters that folks are still making payments on right this minute. It starts with a picture I can't shake. A Jeep Wrangler 4xe hybrid sitting in a man's own garage, smoke rolling out from under the hood, and then flames. That truck was supposed to be the future. Plug it in overnight, wake up, save the family a few dollars at the pump, feel good about yourself. Instead, it damn near took the house with it, and the folks inside were asleep when it started. And that fire is not some freak 1 in a million thing. Over 1 million vehicles have been recalled for engine failure across this industry, and we are only part way through the model year. Brand new trucks are dying within a few hundred miles of the lot. $5,000 repair bills are landing on cars that people bought for one reason, because somebody swore to them they were reliable. Engines are letting go in vehicles the owners have not even finished paying for. They are still writing the check every month for a machine that is sitting dead in the driveway. I have been turning wrenches on diesel trucks for 40 years, and I have been around engines long enough to know the difference between plain bad luck and plain bad engineering. This is not bad luck. What you are looking at is what happens when you take a little tiny engine, strap a turbocharger onto it, choke it down with computers and emissions gear until it can barely breathe, and then turn around and ask it to do the work of something twice its size. The old engines were overbuilt, and they were simple. There was extra metal everywhere, extra margin built into every part, because the men who designed them expected the thing to last. You could fix one in your own driveway with a socket set and a shop manual and a Saturday afternoon. These new ones are downsized, boosted, locked down tight, and built from the start to be thrown away when they break. And here's the part that ought to make you angry. The companies selling them know it. I'm Earl, and I've been obsessed with cars and tinkering the better part of my life. So if that's your kind of talk, consider subscribing. It's free, and you can always change your mind later. So pour yourself a cup of coffee and settle in, because we are counting down 8 brands from number 8 all the way to number 1. And I promise you, the closer we get to number 1, the worse this thing gets. Let's start with number 8, Volkswagen and Audi and their EA888 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder. Now this engine has been around for years, through multiple generations, and here's the part that ought to make your jaw hit the floor. After all that time, they still have not fixed it. Volkswagen settled a massive class action over turbocharger failure on this engine, and that trouble covers model years 2008 all the way through 2024. Sit with that number for a second. That is 16 straight years of the same defect, and instead of digging in and fixing the root cause once and for all, they wrote checks and kept right on building it. Then there is a second class action, and this one is over catastrophic oil consumption. The piston rings on these are defective, so the engine burns oil like an old kerosene lantern, and the only real cure they offer is a complete engine replacement. Not a gasket, not a seal, not a valve. The whole engine comes out. Now think about what oil burning like that does. You are running low without knowing it. The parts inside are starving for lubrication, and metal is grinding on metal, and that is before you even get to the broken PCV valves, the timing cover that leaks, and the water pumps that give out early. Now let me tell you what a failing turbo actually does to you, because the folks in the ads never mention it. That turbocharger spins at well over 100,000 revolutions a minute, and it rides on a thin film of oil. When it starts to go, you get bearing play, you get oil pushing past the seals, and eventually that oil gets pulled straight into the intake and burned. In the worst cases, the engine will run away on its own oil, and there is not a thing you can do to stop it. And before you tell yourself this is all ancient history that got sorted out, understand this. The brand new 2026 Volkswagen Tiguan, sitting on the showroom floor right now, still carries this very engine and these very same troubles. Same motor, same story, brand new sticker price on the window. When a company keeps building the same defect for 16 years, that is not a mistake anymore. That is a business decision, and you are the one paying for it. Now we move to number 7, Jeep and the Wrangler and the Grand Cherokee with their 2-liter turbo 4. They sell you the image of a tough, go-anywhere, climb-any-mountain machine, but the engine sitting underneath that image cannot survive plain ordinary driving to the grocery store. In late 2025, Jeep recalled around 100,000 vehicles for manufacturing defects that could cause catastrophic engine failure or an engine fire. That is the exact same nightmare we opened this whole thing with, a Jeep and a fire. And a recall is not the end of the trouble, it is just the part they got forced to admit to. Owners are reporting head gasket failure, cracked cylinder liners, cracked pistons, oil leaks, coolant leaks, and turbochargers letting go. A cracked piston, folks, is the kind of thing that used to take serious abuse to cause, and now it is showing up on trucks driven gentle. Here is the real kicker. Jeep just rolled out a brand new 2-liter turbo on the 2026 Grand Cherokee. Completely unproven, zero track record, not one single year of real paying customers behind it. So my advice to you is about as plain as I can make it. Let somebody else be the test subject. Let some other fellow eat the repair bills and the tow trucks and the weeks in the shop while the bugs get worked out on his dime. Wait at least 2 full years before you put your own hard-earned money on an engine that has never once been tested in the real world. That brings us to number 6, Ford and their 1.5-liter EcoBoost, and I want you to pay real close attention here because this one is a 3-cylinder. 3 cylinders, that is it. And they are asking those 3 little cylinders to pull an Escape or a Bronco Sport down the interstate loaded up with a family, the dog, and a week of camping gear. Owners are reporting coolant getting right into the cylinders where it has no business being, the engine overheating, losing compression, and heading straight into full engine replacement territory. Now here is what really lights me up about this one. Ford has stood in this exact spot before. The earlier 1.5 and 1.6 EcoBoost 4 cylinders had lawsuits filed over the very same failure, coolant working its way into the engine and killing it. Ford promised improvements. They swore up and down they had learned the lesson. And yet here we are again, standing in the same puddle, only now the engine is even smaller, down a whole cylinder, and under even more pressure than before. That is not learning a lesson. That is doubling down on a bad bet. And when this one finally lets go, it does not give you the courtesy of a warning light and a slow fade. It just shuts down. You could be merging onto the highway with a loaded semi filling up your mirror, and the thing simply quits on you right there. And let me explain why the coolant getting in is a death sentence, not a repair. When coolant slips past a bad seal or a cracked passage into the cylinder, it washes the oil right off the cylinder walls. Steam does not lubricate anything. So now you have got a piston and a bore scrubbing against each other bone dry, scoring the metal, and by the time the temperature gauge even swings up on you, the damage is already done deep inside. That is why so many of these turn into a full engine replacement instead of a gasket job. The engine has already eaten itself before the driver ever knew a thing was wrong. Halfway through now, at number 5, Honda and their 1.5-liter Turbo 4. This one stings me, and I will be honest with you about that, because Honda is the brand regular working people trust to run 300,000 miles and never once leave them stranded. That reputation was not given to them. It was earned over decades of honest, overbuilt, dead simple engines. And this engine right here is spending that reputation like a wild air spending the family money. It launched back in 2016 with severe oil dilution. What that means in plain talk is that raw fuel was mixing down into the oil and breaking it down. So the very thing that is supposed to protect your engine was getting watered down and weakened every single time you drove it. Honda made some tweaks around the edges. They did not fix it. And now there is a whole new problem stacked right on top of the old one. The head gasket is failing early. And I mean early. Right around 60,000 miles, 100,000 kilometers, which is barely broken in for a Honda. When that gasket goes, coolant floods into the combustion chamber and the engine is finished. That is roughly $5,000 out of your pocket on an Accord or a CR-V, a car you specifically bought for peace of mind and nothing else. And think about what oil dilution and a bad head gasket do working together on the same engine. The oil is already weakened by fuel, so it is protecting less than it should, and then coolant comes in and finishes the job. That is 2 separate attacks on the same bearings and the same cylinder walls. There is a class action ongoing over it, and Honda has offered no extended warranty and no goodwill program to stand behind these owners. They are phasing this engine out, and that decision right there tells you exactly what they think of it. You will find this motor mainly in the non-hybrid Accord, the non-hybrid CR-V, and some Acura models, So you check that engine code before you sign one single piece of paper, because the hybrid versions run a different setup and dodge this bullet. Now number 4, General Motors and their 1.2-liter turbo 3-cylinder. You will find this little thing in the Chevy Trax, the Trailblazer, the Buick Envista, and the Encore. 1.2 liters. Let that sink in. That is smaller than a whole lot of motorcycle engines out there, and they hung a turbocharger on it and told you with a straight face that it was plenty of engine for a car full of people. It is a tiny motor already living way out on the ragged edge of everything it can possibly do, and then on top of that, they command it to make boost and work even harder. Owners are reporting bearing failure, connecting rod damage, oil leaks, and complete loss of propulsion. Loss of propulsion means the car just dies right there in the travel lane, no warning, no limp home mode, nothing. And when it happens to you, well, good luck, because the replacement engines are back ordered for weeks or even months at a stretch. There are class actions already filed on this one, and there is no official recall yet, but the complaints are piling up higher and higher every single week that goes by. So if you already own one of these, do yourself a favor. Check your oil constantly, not once a season, and listen close for any knocking or any ticking down in the bottom end, because that little sound is very likely the only warning you are ever going to get. We are into the top 3 now, and I told you it only gets uglier from here. Number 3, Hyundai and Kia and their 2-liter Theta 2 4-cylinder. This one is flat out infamous, and every bit of that reputation was earned the hard way. Over the years, millions of vehicles have been recalled tied to this engine family, and the list of reasons reads like a horror story. Rod bearing failure, piston ring failure, engines seizing up solid on the highway, and engines catching fire. And I do not just mean engines that overheated while driving. I mean fires in cars that were parked and shut off, sitting cold in a driveway, spontaneously bursting into flame, with nobody within 100 feet of them. This whole mess turned into multiple class actions, NHTSA investigations, government fines, attention from Congress up in Washington, and story after story running on the national news. Now, to be fair, and I always try to be fair, Hyundai and Kia have largely moved over to a newer engine family they call SmartStream, and by every account I have seen with my own eyes, it performs a whole lot better. That is real progress, and I will give them credit for it. But do not you dare let your guard down, because the Kia Seltos still uses the 2-liter Theta 2 right now in 2026, brand new off the truck. So if you go out shopping for a Seltos, you check that engine yourself, under the hood, on the paperwork, everywhere, and if it turns out to be the 2-liter Theta 2, you turn right around and you walk straight out that door. It really is that simple. Now number 2, and I will tell you, this one hurts to say out loud, Toyota and the twin-turbo V6 in the Tundra. Toyota is supposed to be the very definition of the word reliability. It is the truck a father points his kid toward when they go to buy their first vehicle, because it is supposed to be the safe choice, the boring, dependable choice. But this twin-turbo V6, the one that debuted in the fully redesigned 2022 Tundra, has been an outright disaster from the very first day. Manufacturing defects, design flaws, and rod bearing failure that lets go sudden and violent, taking the whole engine down with it in an instant. We are talking tens of thousands of dollars in damage on a truck that somebody had owned for less than a single year. And Toyota did not have just one recall on this thing to clean it up. They had 2 separate massive recalls covering the 2022, the 2023, and the 2024 model years. 2 full rounds of so-called fixes. And now, right on schedule, the 2025 Tundra owners are reporting the exact same failures all over again. You know what that tells me? As a man who has chased problems just like this one for 40 years across a shop floor. It tells me the root cause was never actually found and never actually solved. They treated the symptom twice, and the disease is still in there, and it does not even stop at the Tundra. That very same engine powers the Sequoia, the Lexus GX, and the Lexus LX. So paying all that extra money for the premium Lexus badge on the hood does not protect you one single bit. Same engine, same failure, fancier grille, and a nicer set of seats to sit in while you wait for the tow truck. That brings us all the way down to number 1, the worst and the most widespread of the entire bunch, General Motors, and their full-size trucks and SUVs with the 5.3-liter and the 6.2-liter V8. This is your Silverado, your Sierra, your Tahoe, your Suburban, and your Yukon. The best-selling, most popular trucks in the whole country, sitting in millions and millions of driveways from coast to coast. Here is the black heart of the problem. These engines use cylinder deactivation, a system that shuts down half the cylinders while you are cruising down the road, all to squeeze out a tiny bit of better fuel economy on the sticker. Sounds real clever sitting there on paper in a boardroom. Out here in the real world, that system causes the lifters to collapse. And when a lifter collapses, it does not fail alone and quiet. It takes the camshaft right down with it, and it sends metal shavings circulating through the entire engine, through the oil, through every bearing. That is total, complete failure. Full replacement, nothing less. And I have personally seen this happen at only a few hundred miles on the odometer before the owner had even made his very first payment on the truck. Now the 6.2 liter, the bigger premium motor that costs you more, adds rod bearing failure right on top of all that. So it has got itself a whole second, separate way to blow itself apart. Owners are waiting weeks and months for a replacement engine, and a lot of them are getting no loaner car at all while they wait and while they still make payments. And here's the part that truly lights my fuse. General Motors knows. They know exactly what is happening out here. They have known for a good while. And instead of standing behind the trucks already sitting in people's driveways, they are pouring all their attention and all their money into future engines. The honest folks who bought these trucks in good faith are left holding the bag all by themselves. And I want you to really understand how backwards this whole thing is. Cylinder deactivation was never put on there for you. It was put on there to help the manufacturer hit a fuel economy number on a government test so they could keep selling big trucks without a penalty hanging over them. You get a couple tenths of a mile per gallon that you will never even notice at the pump, and in exchange you carry all the risk of a system that can grenade a perfectly good V8. That is the trade they made for you, without asking, and they did it on the most important vehicle a lot of families own. A truck is not a toy. It is how a man gets to work, how he tows his trailer, how he pulls his boat, and they gambled the heart of it on a gimmick to pass a test. So there it is, laid out plain. 8 brands, 8 nightmares, and not one of them is some obscure oddball nameplate you would never think to look at twice. These are the best-selling names in the whole business, the ones on every billboard and every ball game and every commercial during the big game. Let me leave you with the part that actually matters, the part you can carry out the door and use tomorrow. Before you buy anything, new or used, you check the open recalls for that exact vehicle by its own number, and you do it yourself. Do not ever take a salesman's word for it. You find out exactly what engine you are getting, right down to the code printed on the paperwork, because the difference between a good motor and a hand grenade can come down to one little option box that got checked or unchecked. And once you own the thing, you never ever ignore the early warning signs. A ticking down low, a knock, the sweet smell of coolant, oil disappearing between changes for no reason. That is your engine talking to you, and the only language it has, and it is telling you to act right now while you still can and while it is still cheap. The dealers and the manufacturers are not going to look out for you. They have shown us that plain as day. So you look out for yourself, you learn what is under your own hood, and you keep your eyes wide open. Trust the metal, not the marketing, and you drive safe out there.